This is the 10-Minute Contrarian Podcast. This is VP. We're a solutions-based podcast, diving into the world of contrarian investing and alternative finance. You can find us hosted on the No Nonsense Forex YouTube channel, NoNonsenseForex.com, and podcast players everywhere. Episode 261 is brought to us by ByBit. Speaking of Bitcoin, you can buy, sell, trade, and win Bitcoin on ByBit. Now you might be sitting there thinking, yeah, right, who actually wins these Bitcoins? I've never seen or known anybody. One of our traders did, actually. He's active on our Discord. He entered a raffle, barely had to do anything, just showed up, entered, and won 2 whole Bitcoin. So for all of you people who are crazy enough to avoid ByBit for some reason, or who sign up and don't do anything, just think of what you're missing, or what you have the potential to miss out on. They have promotions like this going on all the time. And you can be eligible for these things and get even more bonuses plus a great customer service by clicking on my link, which you can find in the ByBit blog, which is down below in the show notes. Scroll to the bottom of that blog, click that link, get signed up, and make that where you do all of your trading from now and forever. And get infinitely more options than every other trader on planet Earth gets, because with ByBit membership has its rewards. It is the 10-Minute Contrarian Podcast, and I wasn't clickbaity on the title. This is really going to be a conspiracy that's not completely mine. It's kind of a mishmash of, I guess, other conspiracies. But like a lot of conspiracies are, I think this is highly plausible. And it's going to be very interesting to track this idea as we go forward, but agree or disagree with it. I think as an investor, you can learn a lot because you also learn how the mechanics of a lot of these rises and drops actually happen. And then once you understand the ethos behind it, when they happen again, you will not be surprised. You will not be compelled to do anything rash. You will simply be able to sit back and say, oh, I see exactly what they're doing. I understand why they're doing it. And the reason almost every time when somebody or a group of somebodies, it's almost always a group of somebodies, tank price, what they're really doing the entire time is buying more of whatever it is at much cheaper prices. That was the reason for tanking the asset in the first place. Now, you could also make the case that this is going on with gold and silver right now, but that is another episode for another time. We are focusing on Bitcoin today because I feel like there's something uniquely sinister going on behind the scenes. And right or wrong, I'd like to go ahead and put it out there. And at first, before I made this episode, I'm like, yeah, who really wants to sit here and listen to my conspiracies about something? But then I thought about it. I'm like, well, that's more or less one of the main reasons you guys tune in the first place, is to listen to me rant and rave about stuff like this. And even though some of these things are conspiracies on the surface, I think far too many of them have been far too accurate as time has gone on. We wish most of the time these conspiracies were not true, but with social media, the more we learn, especially over time, we're like, oh my God, that shit really happened. So with this one, let's go from basic to advanced. If you don't know by now, every contrarian should know this. Wealth is just money transferring from the poor to the rich. That is how it's always been. And no matter which policies you try and enact, this will never stop being the case. So love it or hate it, we have to play the game in front of us, and that is the game in front of us. It's like the whole game. And in investing, we see it all the time, long term at least, which is really all that matters. Money is transferred from the mushy middle to the long game players. Why? Because long game players don't fall for current narratives, to where that's really all mushy middle people care about. And when you have the majority of investors in that pool caring so deeply about the day-to-day and the week-to-week and the month-to-month, they become very, very easy to manipulate. It's hard to manipulate a long-term investor because we really don't give a shit. Oh, is this happening? Oh, are people panicking over it? Oh, that's nice. Yeah, great. Seen it before. We all know the right answer over here. We don't care. Oh, does this mean we're getting cheaper prices on the things we love? Awesome. Appreciate yous. But we, as contrarians always are an insignificant minority. We don't have our own social media platforms, so we have to use the ones that are out there, used by normies and mushy middle people, what seems like almost exclusively. And the FUD and the panic going on social media, especially X. You guys should all be on X. The problem is if you are, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And you can either choose to let it affect you and become a mushy middle person, or you can simply choose not to and keep hodling on. But it does play a very big part in the overall scheme of things. Now, speaking of schemes, let's go ahead and move from basic to more advanced. Here is the theory that I have put together. Makes perfect sense to me. If you guys ever want to poke holes in this, I know it seems like I'm soliciting comments for the algorithm. At Contrarians, I stopped trying to grow my channel like 5 years ago. It's been in maintenance mode ever since. I just like good back and forth banter between people within my own tribe. This tribe is not big. And last episode, I thought we got some great back and forth. So this episode, just know that all of these episodes do go to YouTube. On Spotify and Apple, where most of you are, you cannot comment on this episode, but YouTube you can. So if you see any holes in this theory, or you just think I'm flat out wrong, go in and tell me why. You are fully allowed to disagree with me. But either way, here is how this whole movement breaks down. All right, this is going to be, at its core, a move, a positioning for further U.S. dominance. We all know there is a big push for this going on already, with the United States trying to lock down the Western Hemisphere, primarily by kicking the globalists out and kicking China out, which they've actually done a remarkable job of doing so far, whether you agree or disagree with it. And then this, and really everything they're doing, if you want to look at it through this lens, is just doing nothing but making the United States more and more dominant. Now, if you're from other countries and you don't like this, I totally understand that. But like we said before, you have to play the game in front of you, whatever it is. You can't be like 92% of these losers on social media and try to complain things away, because they will try to do whatever they can to get you to play their miserable game, because misery loves company, as we all know. This happened to me on Telegram the other day. They were like, you don't just have to sit there and accept society. And I'm like, well, sure, yeah, you're free to do whatever you want, but if your idea of not accepting it is to sit there and complain all day, as opposed to taking advantage of it, therefore making sure that over time society and all the problems with it affect you less and less, that's the winner's game. You're playing the loser's game. I'm playing the winner's game. Whether or not I win in the end is yet to be seen. But unlike you, I'm playing the right game. Anyway, where the hell was I? Okay, so yeah, U.S. is going for further global dominance because we went through all these years of globalism, which purposely made the U.S. weaker, and they want to get it back. Okay, that's the game. Got it. Now again, we've seen them already do this in a number of ways, but monetarily, this is very important. The United States has done things to make the United States dollar stronger over time, even though price recently has not reflected this. We'll go over that in a moment. But they know it's not just something a bunch of cypherpunks and young investors know anymore. They know that there is superior money out there, and this money will continue to take over fiat as the decades go by. And those two things, as we sit here now, are gold and Bitcoin. Now, we did an episode on this about 2 months ago, talking about how you have to lean on where you're dominant. And the East right now is, at least monetarily, is not dominant in very many things at all, except for one: gold. They have way more gold than the West does. And so if you had to choose between something you're weak in compared to something you dominate in, and you're going to make that the de facto currency going forward, or at least have it play a big part, which one are you going to choose? You're going to choose the one where you're dominant. You're not going to surrender this power over to your rival. That's stupid. So gold in the East is going to become a much, much bigger deal over the coming decades than it is now. And it's already important now. But by the same token, if you're the West, you have to ask yourself the exact same question. As great as gold is that what we're going to use to protect ourselves against the inevitability of collapsing fiat currency? Are we going to use gold to exert our financial dominance over the East? Well, no, you can't do that. The East has too much of it, and the West doesn't have enough. In the United States, we don't even have the gold everybody thought we had in Fort Knox. It's clearly not all there. If it was, we would have showed it to you a long time ago. So gold-wise, we're even weaker than people think we are. So that leaves one asset, and lucky for the West, they control the majority of it, to where the East does not. And that, of course, is Bitcoin. And all the major powers in the West, especially the United States, understand this, even the banks. And that's important because the banks yield a lot of power. No matter who the sitting president of the United States is, and no matter who the Congress is, the banks will always have their measure of control in things. And they now are all on board with Bitcoin. Even the ones who say bad things about it. We've talked about this. JP Morgan's the number one Bitcoin hater in the world, according to people who don't know any better. No, JP Morgan is right now the most positioned to handle not just a blockchain transfer, but a Bitcoin transfer as well. They only talk bad about it to buy themselves time. The mushy middle mind just cannot comprehend this for some reason, but it's so obvious. So step one is to pick your pony, and the United States has already done that. So now it's time to load up on Bitcoin. Now, are you going to want to do that at higher prices or lower prices? Of course, lower prices. You can currently get Bitcoin for less than half of what it was at its peak. And you can do all of this even though there was no real fundamental event that even caused Bitcoin to fall this far. Did we have the drama we had back in 2017? No. Did we have the drama with SBF and FTX that we had in 2021? No. We don't have anything like that this time. Yet the price has fallen an awful lot. Curious, no? Yeah, it should be curious. Now that we've established the game, which is to dominate Bitcoin and get as much of it as you can, and now that we have come up with the basic plan, which is to drop price as much as you can so you can gobble up more of it, let's talk about how you put that plan in motion and what you do and how you just so easily manipulate the mushy middle people along the way, because that's always part of the plan. Why? Because it works every time, because it's so damn easy. So here's what you do. Step one, and this is very much in the background, because people don't think of it this way. So when you look at the price of Bitcoin, just like anything else, you have a numerator and a denominator. You have the thing, which is the numerator, and what it is priced in, which is the denominator. We've talked about this often on the show, how you are taught from a very young age, and this never changes, to only look at the numerator and ignore the denominator. That's why nowadays nobody today still can figure out why the price of literally everything is so much higher than it was before. Because they're looking at the food. They're looking at the house. They're looking at the new car. They're looking at the iPhone. They are not looking at the one thing all four of those items are measured in: the denominator, fiat currency, and in this case, the United States dollar. Now, oddly enough, fundamentally, the United States dollar is just getting stronger and stronger, regardless of what you're seeing price do in the short to mid-term. Now, we just talked last week, I think, how I think we should see strengthening in the DXY, short to mid-term. But if you just look at the fundamentals of it, I mean, for one, my God, might we have a new petrodollar? Like, they said the petrodollar was dead, and the old version is. But look what's been going on lately. Venezuela used to transact a lot of that oil in yuan. Now it doesn't. They've switched to dollars. Iran used to do the same thing. Transacted a lot of that oil in yuan. And now a lot of that's getting transferred over to the United States dollar. At least that was part of the deal. We'll see, but that was part of the deal. That deal that everybody thinks is so lopsided, One way, because of what they were told on social media and legacy media, if you can get Iran to stop using yen and switch over to dollars as part of the deal, how bad of a deal is it now? Might be still bad in your eyes, but not as bad as it was before. You know, there's levels to this, contrarians. And when I see all of social media flipping out, especially when liberals and conservatives both are flipping out over the same thing and all agreeing what a terrible deal it was by the guy who wrote the book, The Art of the Deal. They didn't. He did. Now, this isn't a super pro-Trump thing. This is just reality. You know, look at what these people were doing during the tariff tantrum. They were all flipping out and saying the exact same thing. And what happened? They were all wrong. Now, is that story over yet completely? No, it's not. But all of the things they thought and said were going to happen did not happen. So pardon me for being contrarian. And when the whole world is saying what a terrible deal this was with Iran, color me a bit more skeptical, especially if one of the caveats of that deal was to switch the oil transactions from yuan to USD. Yeah, I don't think so. No, but you do what you want to do. You can side with the people who thought tariffs were going to kill us all. You can side with the people who thought this was World War III. That's fine. You are allowed to do that. But I'll be over here. Come hang out if you want. What, nobody wants to hang out? I got bourbon. Okay. Now, as far as the United States dollar goes in the next 6 months or so, we have a new Fed chair. New Fed chair seems hawkish. I like the new Fed chair. But you still have to remember who runs the United States economy. Does anybody know the name of the person who runs the United States economy? Pop quiz time. This difficulty is out of 10. I'm going to say it's probably a 3. Who runs the entire United States economy right now? His name is Scott Bessent, not Kevin Warsh. And I am not going to go down this rabbit hole too much because I am going to make a Substack post out of it this week. Stay tuned for that. And sign up to my Substack. Link is down below in the show notes. But it just so happens that this renewed faith in the United States dollar, at least short to midterm, I think does not exist in a vacuum. Let's just put it that way. But we'll move on. But anyway, everything going on in the world is pointing to a stronger United States dollar. Everybody's like, well, all these countries have been selling U.S. treasuries. Yes, they have. Correct. But from everything that's been going on, United States treasuries are going to look like a better and better option, and they already are. I mean, look at the DXY. Almost all of that is measured against the euro, the pound, and the yen. 3 countries who are losing global dominance at a rapid rate, all imploding in their own way, and already majorly struggle with energy efficiency. And do you think this is going to get better or worse going forward? Now, don't forget, we're in the 4th turning, and we still have a lot of it to go. So fundamentally, long-term, you have a stronger dollar. But that's not really going to accomplish the main goal here. Don't forget what the plan is. Drop the price of Bitcoin as far as you can so you can pick up as much of it as you can, therefore establishing monetary dominance, at least in the Western Hemisphere, for the next 20, 30, 40 years. You hope you can do it with your own fiat currency, but you fully understand the limitations and the terrible mechanics of fiat currency. And I mean, it's not like you're ever going to take the possibility of printing money off the table. That's absurd. So you know good and well that fiat currency is only going to get worse over time, no matter what. But you got to get that cheap Bitcoin. And it's more important to get cheap Bitcoin than it is cheap gold because Bitcoin is finite. So the more of it you can get, the more dominant you become. All right? That's the one thing that really makes Bitcoin different from gold. Now, if somebody, for some reason out there, I mean, maybe this is true, I don't know, but let's say somebody out there owns 4% of all the gold in the world. I mean, it's actually a really high number if you think about it, disturbingly high. But if somebody did, it's like, okay, fine. It's not that big of a deal. Because for one, there's always more gold coming online, and there will always be. But let's say if you, or possibly your company, owns 4% of all the Bitcoin in the world, knowing that there's only going to be so much of it. And you just continue to buy more and more, so that percentage is bound to go higher. And your company, let's just say, does not play ball with the current establishment. You are a problem. You are a gleaming turd in this big, beautiful punch bowl that everybody's trying to drink from for the next 30, 40 years. And if you haven't figured it out, you are Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy. And so given what the overall plan is, which I think we can almost all agree on, it's a very plausible plan that already looks like it's happening. And you have one bigger than usual problem here that you really need to find a way to eliminate. I mean, apart from going full Soviet style and just saying, hey, yeah, we are corrupt, what are you going to do about it? And offing the poor guy and nationalizing his company. How else do you maybe not get him completely out of the picture, but like really take him down? You do exactly what's going on right now. Almost all of you guys are on X. You see it. Michael Saylor is mortal enemy number one. Enemy of the banks, enemy of the Bitcoin maxis, the purists, who have all piled on, and all of these little toads and trolls coming out of their caves and rocks who were really, really silent back when Bitcoin was at 120K. Now, the only person saying anything bad about Bitcoin back then was Peter Schiff. Literally nobody else. But isn't it funny how during down cycles, when we're near bottoms, everybody and their two mothers come out of the woodwork and they all have something to say, don't they? So crazy. And the public smear against Michael Saylor has been extraordinary for the first half of this year. They have taken his investment product, STRC, which we talk about here a lot on the show, because if it actually ends up doing what it's supposed to do long term, it could very well be one of the most disruptive things ever to happen to finance in the history of finance. I don't think, no matter how many times I say it, people really understand the magnitude of what this could be. But it could become a real problem at the expense of the banks, who, as we just explained, are and will always be very much in bed with the United States government. And they are on a very united front when it comes to attacking and taking down, whether you take them down all the way or whether you take them down some of the way, or what they're hoping is most of the way. How do you make the biggest problem in Bitcoin, in their eyes, no longer a big problem? You do exactly what they're doing right now. Michael Saylor is almost certainly autistic in some way. Autistic people are going to say the wrong things sometimes. You, as somebody in the media, if this is your goal, you want to take those few things and magnify them as big as you can. You want to make this man hated, lampooned, all for the purpose of doing one thing: destroying the confidence in STRC, because all investments rely on one thing more than anything else, and that's confidence. If you can somehow turn Michael Saylor into one of the biggest fraudsters and Pied Pipers of our time, well, then you essentially have accomplished your goal, because his instruments will crash and the company will be forced to dump a lot of their Bitcoin. And as soon as they do, the United States government will immediately scoop it up. Now, I can't take full credit for this part of the conspiracy. I got to credit Tom Luongo with that. If you guys are fans of his, you might have heard him say this. But if I'm putting it all together with the strength of the United States dollar, with causing Bitcoin to irrationally drop as much as it has, and having that main reason, at least now, be the fudding of Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy, you can also erode confidence of the retail crowd, which they've done a fantastic job of. And we used to talk about this years ago on the show. If you're going to make a recession, but people have already been kind of trained to just wait it out because they always know it's going to get better, within a year. How do you get those people to sell as well? so you can come in and scoop up all those great assets on the cheap. Well, you don't just drop price, you also extend the time. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if we end up in Shitsville for a while, or at least while this whole Michael Saylor thing plays out. Like, I really do feel like they're trying to damage this guy as much as they can, and governments can play the long game in this particular case, far more than your average investor can. We know that. So all this time into episode 261, what is the solution? Well, the solution is to do what we've been doing. Fight their long game with our long game. Do not become the useful idiots they want. They're already going to get plenty. Doesn't need to be us too. And we will simply play the game they're playing. Not by doing all the evil, dirty stuff they're doing, but by partaking in the result they want to accomplish. You notice how the one thing not being attacked hardly at all this entire time is Bitcoin itself. You're going to have some crotchety old people like Jeremy Grantham, who's 85 years old, coming out and saying, I don't like Bitcoin. Yeah, well, of course you don't. Same reason Buffett doesn't like it. You won't be around long enough to really reap the benefits. But try as they might, they can't really attack Bitcoin and what it is. So they're forced to have to divert their attention over to Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy and STRC. We know Bitcoin is the most transformative things to happen to money in probably the last 500 years. And governments know this too. So if you're ever second guessing yourself about things like Bitcoin, just know that you're in good company. Because love or hate the government, a company like that matters more than any other, quote, company you could ever keep. We are aligned. And during this period of FUD and during this down cycle, everybody wants you to focus on the price, just like they always do. When it's time to sell, they want you focused on the high price. When it's time to buy, what do all the headlines say by these awful hacks on X? Bitcoin crashes to this price. Bitcoin collapses to this price. And they always put it in caps because they know how inexperienced and stupid even Bitcoin investors are at this stage of the game, even though they've all gotten older and wiser. All of these tactics still work and they always will. It's all the same misdirection. Look over here at the numerator, not the denominator. Or in this case, hey, look over here at the price, not what's actually going on behind the scenes. Will you continue to fall for this, even though you say you know better, even though you have contrarian in your Twitter bio? I think a lot of you do, but I hope by getting a better understanding of the mechanics of how and why these things happen and what the overall process is and how this manipulation is done and how it's the same pattern every single time. Whether or not you agree or disagree with my current theory, you really can't disagree with that. Stay the course, get out of your feels. You shouldn't even have any feels about this, about any of this in modern day. It's the same goofy-ass circus over and over again. What part of you thinks this time is different? Believe me, if they drop price and then they extend the bear market over the next year or two, that's what they're going to want you to believe. That's what the media outlets will say. And I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you what I'm doing. I'll be constantly adding more. I mean, I add more when prices are high because I realize those prices are only going to be high in the midterm. We've said this before. I don't buy Bitcoin. I move my money over from terrible money, which is fiat, to good money, which is gold and Bitcoin. And I don't care what the price is. This is not a swing trade. This is not something I'm hoping to sell for a big profit in 5 to 10 years. It's better money. And I want as much better money going forward as I can get. Please, take most of my shitty money and give me the better money. But price has gone down a lot, and Michael Saylor, your terms are acceptable. Yeah, I'll take it. Sounds great, actually. But the best part about all of this is we actually, this isn't a tiny window we have to jump through. I'm not sure how much longer the window is going to be where it is, but not caring about FUD and also not caring about price might seem completely crazy to most people. It actually does. But we know better. We're not crazy at all. We just continue to be early.